Hello and welcome to the Columbia Daily Tribune's Courtside View basketball webcast. This is Tribune sports editor Joe Waljesper along with Tribune basketball beat writer Steve Walentic. Steve, Missouri now for all time is going to be without Michael Dixon this season. Before it was kind of in limbo, now it's for sure. Just your thoughts on what you thought they were before the season, which I think most of us would agree should have been a contender for the SEC title. Are they still that team going forward?
Yeah, I think they still can be a contender for the SEC, and the reason's really twofold. I still think if you look at their roster, they can still legitimately go 8 players deep, which is really more than they could say last year. I mean, you've obviously got one of the elite guards in the league with Phil Pressey. I think Lawrence Bowers seems to have come back quite nicely from his injury. It looks like he could be a leading scorer on a good team and has been so far. With an expanded game, I think you've got a nice front line with he and Alex Oriaki. I think Ernest Ross has been up and down, but he's still been productive. I mean, he's averaging 11 points and 6 rebounds right now as your number 3 scoring option. That's with a 3 for 19 shooting performance in there, and he's still shooting over 40% for the year. So he's been pretty good, inconsistent but pretty good. You're about to add Jabari Brown to the mix. Who was a 5-star recruit and obviously the coaching staff thinks very highly of. You also have Negus Webster-Chan, who's a freshman who's shown you some things, still developing certainly, but shown you some things. I think Tony Criswell is a serviceable number 3 option in the front court. Maybe can do more for you than Steve Moore did last year in that role. And then you've got Keon Bell, who it seems like he's been playing better these last couple games coming off the bench. So I think you have the makings of a decent rotation and one that can contend in, and this is the second point, a not very good SEC. I mean, you look at the league right now, there's already 3 teams in this league with 5 losses. There are only 3 unbeatens left in this league. Remember when Missouri was in the Big 12 and it seemed like every December, everybody had a great record going into conference play. That's not happening in the SEC right now. This is a league that just went 3-9 in the SEC Big East Challenge. 2 of the wins were against Rutgers and Seton Hall, so it's not like they were beating the class of the conference. Kentucky, I fully expect to still be a part of this race at the end, but right now they've got 3 losses and really don't look like they have a whole lot of direction. There's a lot of talent in Lexington, nobody's arguing that, but honestly the only team that clearly looks to be a legit top 10 team right now is Florida, and I think Missouri falls pretty nicely in line right behind the Gators.
The one thing I guess that Missouri really needs to figure out is what can it do when the whatever number of minutes a game Phil Pressey is not going to be on the floor to at least sort of just hold things together till he gets back on the floor. I think he's a guy that's probably going to play 36 minutes a game.
Frank Haith said on Monday during his media session, I asked that question, and he said he'd like to keep it to the 32 to 35 range, but obviously he's already shown he's willing to go over that number when necessary, and he admitted there might be times where that's necessary. He played nearly 40 minutes against VCU. He put him on the floor with 2 fouls for a lot of the first half against Louisville because he needed him in the game. And so, there's a lot on Phil Pressey going forward without Mike Dixon.
Yeah, and I think in these remaining kind of these pushover non-conference games, I would rest him as much as you could and hopefully get Negus Webster-Chan some time running the point and get Phil Pressey some rest, because I think once the SEC play starts, or even Illinois and the UCLA games, you're going to want to play him almost all the time. That's really been the one thing I think that stood out about Missouri. They're doing a lot well. They're rebounding well.
Defending pretty
well. It's just their offense still looks kind of more like a collection of guys as opposed to a real cohesive team. And multiply what I just said times 5 whenever Pressey's out of the game.
If you watch them on the floor right now, it's the 2 guys who look like they have chemistry are Phil Pressey and Lawrence Bowers, and nobody else really does at this time. Ernest Ross is still figuring out what's a good shot, what's not. Frank Haith has talked at length about what Alex Oriaki still needs to do in terms of expecting the ball, getting in position to get the ball, because he's still not accustomed to being really a regular part of an offense. He wasn't for 3 years at Connecticut. He certainly is now. They like to get him involved. His production has actually fallen off the last 2 games. Not that they needed it, both wins, but I think they would like to get him to be a consistent guy who's threatening for double-doubles on a nightly basis, and he still needs some developing to get to that point.
All right, well, we will continue to chart that development, Steve, as we look forward to the rest of the season.